So that's what I'm saying. So if you can be conscious about what you're priming your mind with, and this just goes back to what do you want? I want to be happy. I want to be wealthy. I want to feel good. I want to have love. You're going to find that. You're going to find that in the people. You're going to walk through a crowd of negative people and only find the good one happy person.
Welcome to the Wits and Weights podcast. I'm your host, Philip Pape, and this twice-a-week podcast is dedicated to helping you achieve physical self-mastery by getting stronger, optimizing your nutrition, and upgrading your body composition. We'll uncover science-backed strategies for movement, metabolism, muscle, and mindset with a skeptical eye on the fitness industry so you can look and feel your absolute best. Let's dive right in. Wits and Weights community, welcome to another episode of the Wits and Weights podcast. Today, we're diving into the power of leaning into the future, embracing your future self, and becoming an alpha in order to win in life with my guest, Ashton Levarek. Ashton will reveal the importance of reframing our memories and interpretations, using positive visualization, and how we can measure progress toward becoming our ideal selves. We'll also explore the concept of being an alpha and the impact it can have on our lives and those around us. So if you're feeling stuck in the past, if you're ready to far exceed what you thought possible into the future, get ready to challenge your thinking and take action. Ashton is a retired Air Force Special Warfare Pararescue jumper with over 14 combat deployments and has a bachelor's degree in sports health and science. Along with his brother, Ashton is a fund manager with over $90 million in real estate under management, is managing partner for Valkere Investment Group, as well as the host of the Art of Winning podcast, which I had the honor of being on recently. From serving in combat to surfing around the world, from traveling with his family to helping others reach their full potential, Ashton is passionate about living his best life, as well as helping others do the same. Thus, he is a strong believer in building that financial platform that allows people the freedom to pursue their true passions and to explore our full potential. Ashton, man, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. That was an awesome intro. I appreciate it.
Well deserved, man. Yeah, we want to set you up for the audience. They know who you are. And kind of digging into that a little bit, combat in the Air Force, entrepreneurship, podcasting, you've definitely had your share of high pressure, maybe high stress situations. And ironically, we're going to get into how our past potentially holds us back, but how has your past, your experience in the military and beyond shaped your approach to winning in life?
Yeah. I've always been that guy that wanted to be challenged. I always looked for the challenge. I was the first guy anytime we were snowboarding, I was the first guy to jump. Anytime, off the cliff or whatever, when we're swimming, same thing. I was always, I'm not sure why that happened. Maybe it was because I was the firstborn and I'm very competitive and I always trying to get back in the spotlight. That's what child psychology tells you, right?
You never know why we do these things.
Yeah.
I wasn't jumping out of parachutes and I was the firstborn, so who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's what I've heard. But anyway,
that's cool.
That's kind of how it started. And I was just never into school when I was in school. And it was kind of like what's the next adventure? Because I know I'm not going to go to college. It's just not working. It wasn't that I was bad at school. It wasn't that I was not smart. It was just I was not motivated to go continue classes. And I wanted to be challenged. And so going in the Air Force, the military, it kind of just seemed natural for me, right? And so that's how I went into that. And then, you kind of you build up that momentum in your life, right? And I think that's important too, because there's that saying, be careful where you're headed. You're likely to end up where you're going. And if you see, these things coming up over and over and you don't like it, man, that's your sign. You need to change your mind, change your body, change your lifestyle, whatever, to get what you want out of life. And I actually really enjoyed where I was going. And so it made sense to me. So I just kept pushing on. And, I don't know if you want, I'm not trying to get metaphysical, but things happened and it just kept leading me on this bigger and bigger adventure, both into business as well as in the military. So
yeah, man, we can nerd out on metaphysics, on philosophy, whatever you want here. I love it all. Yeah. And I always tell people I self-select my audience. They don't like it, they tune out. And if they do, they keep following. So, I mean, you said something interesting there that be careful where you're headed, right? You might not like where you're going. And oh man, there's a lot there, right? Because it also implies that there's a lot of people probably just sitting on their ass, complacent, with life, and if they really just took a moment to think about it, they would know where this is going, or maybe not going anywhere. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And what would you say to that person, or what kind of exercise to kind of, give you that spark so that you can make that change?
I heard a quote once, and I think it's great, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's like, if nothing could go wrong, what would you like your life to be? Where would you like to end up? There's another one I heard Joe Rogan. This one's even better, I think, is if your life was a movie and you were the main character in that movie, you were the hero of that movie, what would your hero do? Right? Go do that. Right? And I tell people all the time when we have these conversations, I'm just like, can I cuss on here?
Go for it. I'll check the explicit box. All good.
I like to cuss because I think it adds drama to it. Like,
sure.
What the fuck do you want out of life? Like, what do you really want? Right? As Jordan Peterson says, like, this life is going to kill you one way or another. It's going to get you. So what are you waiting for? Go after it,
For sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah. We were talking about my friend Carl, offline, and he also says something similar to that. What you're not doing. Like, what is it you're not doing that you need to do? Right. It's kind of related to that.
Yeah.
So we had this conversation by email about, and also you covered it in the podcast episode that came out the day we're recording this. So this is May 12th. So folks, check out Ashton's podcast and go look at that episode. How living in the past can hold us back, right? How it can hold us back from making progress in life. That we often say our current selves are the culmination of our experiences. But here's what you said in the email to me, quote, "These experiences that we rely on to tell us who we are and what we are capable of only exist as memories in our mind. We can see that our present self is limited by our interpretation of our memories of the past. If we got amnesia today and could not remember our past, would we no longer be scared of spiders, apprehensive when it comes to making huge financial decisions, joining the gym, etc.? So let's dig into that a bit. Why is this a problem? Like, why don't we want that context of the past? Or is it really just the asymmetrical part of living in the past, the negatives of the past?
Yeah, I think it is your interpretation, right? Because the past and the future both just exist in your mind. I don't care where you are in your life. But for some reason, we give a lot more weight to what happened to us in the past than we do to what could happen in the future, right? And we make decisions off that. Oh, I can never do that. I can never do that. I'm not like that guy. Well, you could be like that guy, right? You could. I could never make that much money. I could never lose that much weight. I could never, get that job. Like, we have these subconscious, it's the script for our mind. It's the script for our life even. And we don't even know it because for some reason, we talk to ourselves in our mind, but we're not even conscious of it at times. And it becomes so repetitive that you just take it as a fact. But as wise people have often said, like, a belief is just a thought you keep thinking. And you can change beliefs. These can be changed. And so what I was alluding to in that email when I was discussing that, and then of course on the podcast too, is just like, well, for one, why do we wait? Give so much weight to what happened in the past when there's so much more potential in the future. You may not be able to change the past, but you can change your interpretation. So they say there's two types of mindsets, right? There's a growth mindset and a fixed mindset.
Sure.
A growth mindset says, I can learn from this. A fixed mindset says that's all it'll ever be. You see those people. They tell you their story over and over. Oh yeah, it was terrible. I lost all my money, and that's why I would never do that. Like I'm in real estate. I invest in real estate. And so I hear that all the time. You're like, oh yeah, 2008 was terrible. I would never buy real estate. Like, how many millionaires were created in 2008?
Sure.
Because they bought when everybody else was selling. So like, it's how you interpret the information. But the easiest way to get past that is to look into the future. What do you want the future to hold? And give more weight to that. Obviously, you can, if you really wanted to go to, like, this is how psychologists work, right? You go to a psychologist and they analyze your past, everything that's happened to you, and help you reinterpret it. You can do that yourself too. But you could also just look into the future. What do I want out of life? And if others have done it, why can't I?
Yeah. And it seems that looking into so if you are kind of stuck in that pattern, that mental pattern of the past, we know that some of changing how you think can be a larger step for someone than it could be for others potentially. from what they've gone through, and taking a step into the future and building that momentum then could lead to your reinterpretation of the past. I mean, do you agree with that statement? Because that's what I'm thinking. When I think, for example, a skill like public speaking, that I would have labeled myself in the past as an introvert. Like that is the memory of what I was back then, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it didn't matter because it was holding me back. But then when I said, okay, I need to get those skills, I need to join Toastmasters, I need to put myself out there with all the things that I'm afraid of and do them. In hindsight, I realized that I needed that, understanding of who I was to push me into action in the future. So I don't know where I'm going with this from a question, Ashton, because we said we'd get metaphysical, but like, where are we on all that continuum? And maybe practically somebody listening who's mired in those thoughts, what's one thing they can do right now to move the needle forward?
Yeah. No, I love that. Okay. So here's something that I love this. I wish I had a whiteboard or something, but it's like you have where you are right now. You have your potential. For people that are watching, it looks like a box. So you have what you think you are, what you think you can do. That's one corner. And then according to what you think you can do, where you are in life, all that, what you deserve even, like, because a lot of times that is part of it. We don't think we are capable of or deserve that job, so we don't go after it, or that person or whatever, right? Anyway, so you're in that corner. And then you take action, which leads you to the opposite corner, right? And that in that corner, you take action, and then you get the feedback. So if you drop down, you could look at it as a circle or a box. I like a box because every corner is a point, but you come down to the bottom corner. It's like you take action, you learn from that action. Mm-hmm. And as you learn, you change your potential, and it just keeps going around, right? You change the idea of what you're capable of. You take action with that. You learn from that. You adjust what you think you're capable of, and it just keeps going around and around. And so where I'm going with that is when people, let's say you live this life where I don't even know. I don't want to, like, maybe you're in a box right now and you feel like there's nowhere else to go, right? One of the coolest methods I've found is physical, because if you take action, it changes your paradigm, right? Go to the gym, lift a couple weights, go for a run. Like these things, getting the body moving in doing something you've never done before, right? Mm-hmm. Or something harder than you've ever done before, or more challenging in some way or another. It could be mentally, it could be physically, it could be emotionally. Like all of a sudden you're changing your paradigm, which is that top corner we started in. That's your paradigm, right? That's your framework for which you approach life. And when you change that, your potential changes and you're able to take more action, learn from that action, and keeps going and going. I'll tell you a quick story. This was really interesting to me. My mom, a very strong lady, entrepreneur, she was a flight attendant, started her own business, very strong. My dad and her split, and she took it really hard. And something happened to where she's like, screw it, I'm just going to go to Tahiti. Her and my little brother, they went to Tahiti. And next thing you know, that was the first step. And then she's got her scuba diver license. Now she's diving with sharks. Now she's living this, I don't know, eat, pray, love kind of lifestyle where she's just traveling and doing these amazing things that, not that her marriage was holding her back from any of that, but it shifted her mindset. Like divorce isn't a terrible thing. And now she's living this free, amazing life where she's doing a lot of this stuff, but it was a paradigm shift of what she's capable of, and a lot of that had to be with it. She had to take that physical step first, obviously, which opened up that door to so much more and learning and growing as a person, right?
Hey, listeners, this is Philip Pape, and I'm excited to announce our upcoming, totally free 21-day challenge starting December 1st. It's called the Wits and Weights No Diet Holiday Body Recomp Challenge. This challenge is about learning how to achieve body recomposition. That's building muscle and losing fat at the same time without dieting or restriction throughout the holidays. I'll be giving you free videos, guides, and personalized coaching in a private group chat to help you enjoy the holidays while being satisfied and guilt-free. The kickoff call is Friday, November 17, and the link to enroll is in the show notes. No matter what episode you are listening to, don't worry. If you're hearing this after November 17, you can still register and get access to the replay and resources before the challenge starts on December 1st. Again, to join the Wits and Weights No Diet Holiday Body Recomp Challenge to build muscle and lose fat without dieting through the holidays, click the link in my show notes. Now back to the episode. Yeah, and being that this is ostensibly a health and fitness podcast, I like that you went there, right? Because I just interviewed someone who talked about upward spiraling and how the science is showing us the physiological link between taking some physical action, usually about 20 minutes a day of like medium intensity movement of some kind, in affecting your neurotransmitters, right? And your nervous system, and actually then spiraling into other things, improving your mood, improving your energy. So like, just to link it to science a little bit, there's a reality to this, but the way you framed it. So here's the way I always thought of it, as a feedback loop, where you get the feedback, you improve, and you go to the next step. But you just amplified that with the idea that the person you are and your potential and your paradigm shifts. It gets bigger, it moves. Yes. And that actually makes it easier to move forward to the next thing. And when you look in the mirror, you're like, wow, I've come a long way since I started. That's awesome, man. I mean, just taking that radical action, or not even radical action, a simple action that's different to get you out of the funk. Yeah.
And I don't even know the first step that led my mom to think I should go to Tahiti. There could have been something even small. It's just going for a hike or something. I don't know. But you know what I think is, what I think is interesting though, if you look at children are some of the best, they give us some of the best lessons. If you really watch, they don't have any apprehensions. They just see other people around them doing it, right? Because in their first few years of life, it's just grown-ups. And they're like, these guys are walking. Which, imagine the paradigm shift. Yeah. That's like us saying, hanging out with birds and being like, man, they're flying. And I should do that.
You should try that, yeah.
Yeah. And the kids do that, right? Like, they're hanging out with these adults and it's just like, oh, wow, he's standing on his 2 feet. And I'm going to do that. And they crawl, and then eventually they're walking. But as we get older, we get this baggage like, oh yeah, in high school, I wasn't good at the mile run, so I can't go running, like dumb stuff. And we hold on to it for some reason or another. Sure. And that becomes our framework for life as we move forward. So, right.
Yeah. And then that action, the phrase messy action we sometimes talk about. I think even on today's show, you mentioned the difference between being impulsive and irresponsible, like with some big financial decision where you just take some random risk without understanding the facts or the consequences, and actually just moving forward and not holding yourself back. So I think that's the side we're living on here, where I see this all the time, Ashton, where you take action in one area that's easy and you don't think much about it, but because you did that, it opens up some door to taking action somewhere else and somewhere else and somewhere else. Absolutely. So just doing more things and being more involved, not to the point where you're stressed out, but being out there and doing stuff. Like, that's the way I look at it. It's a spiral. Yeah.
I think it's if you can adopt that mindset that there is no such thing as failure, there's only lessons, then it becomes even easier to shift paradigm even faster.
Yeah.
There's a really cool study with entrepreneurs, and I got really into this because I'm in the entrepreneur space. I have my own business. But it was like 90% of first-year entrepreneurs will fail in the first year, right? And of those, a huge majority will not try again. Yeah. They will not start another business, which is sad. But of the ones that do, it was like 90-something% are wildly successful.
Because they learn from that first experience. Yeah. Isn't that so? Then it begs the question, right? And I love this one. How many failures are you away from massive success, from your first million, from your first 10 million? How many failures are you away from that ideal lifestyle, that body, that relationship, that whatever you're seeking, whatever you think you want in life? Like, how many failures are you away from it? It could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 10. But right, it's the Thomas Edison thinking, yeah, right.
But I bet if you knew it was 100, you might be pretty excited to get your first failure. You're like, I'm on my way.
Yeah, you're on your way. It's a step on the way. Yeah. Actually, I had someone on my show recently, Adrian Moreno, talking about when he was trying to learn to sell and making sales calls, and had like 27 no's in a row, and 28 was a yes. And he's like, if I had just given up at 25 or 27 or even 3 or whatever, you wouldn't have seen that. I mean, it's a great message to just keep going and put in the reps, also while learning from that, right? Yes. Not just doing the same thing over and over.
If you don't learn, it is a failure.
Yeah. I mean, podcasting's like that, right? You could relate to this, where you hear the data on podcasters. Just to get in the top 10%, you just have to keep going, pretty much. Like, it doesn't even have to be a good podcast. Just keep making it and you're going to be in the top 10%. That's how many people give up. And then, the next 5%, it's like, you sit around with some more listeners and then the challenge gets higher and higher, but your paradigm is shifted where like, okay, I got this. Yeah. Now I'm going to go to the next level. Yeah. Okay. So you also mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger in your email, which I always love referencing him. Just a cool guy. His autobiography is great. All his movies, he's still making them.
One of my first heroes.
He's just a fun guy. And one of my favorite quotes of his is, for me, life is continuously being hungry. The meaning of life is not simply to exist, to survive, but to move ahead, to go up, to achieve, to conquer. Right. And I guess that's aligned with the idea of identifying with your future self. You were talking about how high performers and successful individuals cultivate that mindset. Do you have examples that you like to share about that? Stories of high performers?
Yeah. So, I'll tell you right now, being in special operations, you get to work with a lot of cool people. Mm-hmm. We're talking people that are super motivated, super capable. But they also bring in a lot of different trainers and athletic athletes and stuff to get their experience and help. It's become, you're essentially, we used to joke about it. We're professional athletes in special operations. Mm-hmm. It's just a little bit different. We're going overseas instead because you get a lot of that training, the psychological, the mental, and of course the physical nowadays. It didn't used to be like that, but it is now. And it's pretty cool. But, we had some Olympic psychologists, like guys that coach Olympians. And one of the things they were huge on was visualizations, which I thought was really interesting. And so they would have us do visualization reps. So for example, when we go to the range, you're training for every contingency when you're at the range shooting, right? So shooting by yourself, shooting with your team. Maybe you have a malfunction, you pull your pistol, all that stuff. So they'd have guys do that. And then they would have us visualize it. Some guys visualize it and some guys just do it. And, the speed at which you learn and adapt and become that person you're trying to become, that very fast, very smooth shooter, was almost the same with the visualization and the people that physically trained it, right?
Oh, okay. You're saying without having actually physically trained it, you've now gotten yourself to that level. And
so that's what you're doing. You're projecting yourself into the future. You're visualizing what it would look like if you did it perfectly, right? And they even, man, I love Arnold Schwarzenegger because he talks about this. The funny thing is he used to imagine his muscles growing, right? Which
from a pretty young age too.
And it's interesting because you're starting to see the science back this up, right? Yeah. They did a study. It was like they did just hand strength. They did, and I wish I could quote the guys, but they did hand strength and it was like just finger strength. So they had these, like half the group do finger exercise and the other half just visualize doing finger exercises. And it was almost exactly the same in finger strength growth.
That's insane, man. That is insane.
It is insane.
Because I don't know, like how often can I go to the gym and lift weights in my brain?
Well, so I don't know if you listen to or have ever heard of Joe Dispenza. I'm a huge fan of his stuff. He talks a lot about this stuff. How the body responds to thinking, it responds to words. There's some amazing studies that back this up. Spontaneous remission, people getting healed without, when they should be dying. And then other things like the study where they took the water and they wrote bad words on it and then good words on different water and like what the molecular structure looked like when they did that. Like word carries vibration. Vibration is what you are made up of. Every electron and neutron, proton in your body is a vibrating, molecule, right? It's a vibrating energy. And sound and thought are energy. And so when you think in a certain way, when you talk in a certain way, you are arranging your vibration in some way, shape, or form, right? And I think the more emotion that he says, the more the emotion that is with that goes with those words, that goes with those thoughts, the faster the manifestation in the body. And so whether it's sickness or happiness or healing or growth or whatever that may be, right? So, I mean, the you want to talk metaphysical, like quantum physics is finding that our physical world responds to thought. I mean, that's as simple as it can get. And you are a lot more powerful than you think you are.
Yeah, I'm open-minded to this stuff in the sense that I'm very rational and scientific about things, but I also understand there maybe 95% of phenomena in existence we don't understand and can't explain yet. Yeah. And one day, in my mind, rational mind, we would be able to explain it. That's kind of the way I think of it, as opposed to just an unexplainable thing. If you think about lifting, strength training, we know a lot about the body and its adaptation to stress on it, right? But we still don't quite know how. Like, we really don't know. We can say this happens and this happens and this happens, right?
Yeah.
But we can't, if we knew exactly how it would work, we would know to tell everybody exactly to do this. And we don't. We just know everybody's tried these things. This subset of those things has worked. So do those things, and there's some variance. And when you're talking about thought, I'm like, okay, when you adapt and you get bigger muscles, for example, it's happening during your sleep. It's happening after the fact, with your body responding to, who knows, chemicals, neural signals, muscle fibers, everything being activated because you put the load on your back. But then that's happening independent of that. So if you could think or do something to instigate all those things. Now, there might be 50 things going on that I don't know of a mental exercise anybody's found yet that could make you jacked without lifting weights.
Yeah.
But maybe one day. So that's Joe Dispenza. Is that the resource for practically learning how to try some of these things?
He has some really amazing videos. He's got some really good books. The first book that comes to mind is You Are the Placebo.
Okay.
And he just talks about, a lot of that is about the placebo effect and how, I mean, I was a medic in the military, and placebos work 60 to 80% of the time, which is as much, if not more, than most drugs, which is insane, right? And as you were talking, I just remembered another study. This one was cool, just correlating to health, nutrition. They gave, it was 100 participants, 50 of them got, everybody got the same milkshake, but they didn't know that. They told 50 of them that this was a very nutritious milkshake, and they were over there on the other one side. And they told the other 50 that it was, just an ice cream milkshake, right?
What they call it, a slurry, don't they?
Something like that. I don't know. Yeah. But the point is, their blood sugar spiked in the people that thought it was just a slurry or an ice cream sundae or whatever, right? Whereas the other ones, they didn't have as much a dramatic effect. What's that about? Yeah,
you're right. Is that the one where they tested pre-workout or intra-workout carbs? Or it's probably similar to that.
Maybe similar. Man, it definitely sounds similar. This one the one I understood was it was a shake, but
okay. Yeah. No, there's a lot of weird. Yeah, you're right. Placebo effect. Of course, that's what a lot of what we're talking about is called. And I'm going off on this complex way to describe it. But no, you're right. There's studies where just tasting a sugar or a carb, even if you don't ingest any of it, causes the effects of of increased glycogen usage when you're expression when you're lifting, whatever. So good stuff, man.
Hi, my name is Lisa, and I'd like to give a big shout out to my nutrition coach, Philip. With his coaching, I have lost 17 pounds. He helped me identify the reason that I wanted to lose weight, and it's very simple: longevity. I want to be healthy, active, and independent until the day I die. He introduced me to this wonderful little app called Macro Factor. I got that part of my nutrition figured out. Along with that is the movement part of nutrition. There's a plan to it, and he really helped me with that. The other thing he helped me with was knowing that I need to get a lot of steps in. So the more steps you have, the higher your expenditure is, and the easier it is to lose weight. When it's presented to you like he presents it, it makes even more sense. And the other thing that he had was a hunger guide, and that really helped me. So thank you, Philip.
Where do we go next on this? So I was thinking about how we interpret memories, because that's one thing you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And then we give them that significance with our present self. And you talked about reframing. So how do we reframe them?
How do we reframe our memories? Yeah. Well, I think it's important to, you have to be clear about what you want, right? What do you want out of life? You want to be happier? Do you want more money? Do you want a healthier body? I would also, and I said it, I gave it away, but the first thing, if you were to whittle down everything you want out of life and why you want it, you will find 99% of the time, you want that thing because you think it's going to make you happier, right? So can we focus on that first, right? And then the journey just becomes a fucking joy. excuse my language, but it becomes a joy. Like it's the whole process, right? So, if you're looking at your memories, oh, my dad beat me, right? I'll tell you, like, that's a real thing for me. That was something I grew up with. But I look at that now and I'm like, man, when I went to boot camp, they were yelling in my face. It did nothing to me because of how my father was so disciplinary. And it had no effect on me. So for me, that's a positive thing, right? Because I choose to interpret it as a positive thing. Because I choose, that's happiness, right? You want to be happy. So if you believe, and let's have fun here for a second. If you believe, Einstein said, you have to ask yourself, do you think the universe is friendly or it's unfriendly, right? And that's really what it is, right? Does the universe want the best for you? And I would argue it does, because let's say you get a cut in your arm, it heals on its own. Yeah. Science is going to explain all this, and I get that, and I get how it works, but it does heal it on its own. But when you are depressed and there's high stress, it doesn't. It's slower, right? You get sick faster. So it does start in the mind. It starts with how you interpret the scenario, right? And so whatever happened in the past, how you interpret that's going to affect everything, obviously, but also how you are presently, how you choose to interpret that past can change, because again, the past only exists in your head. And so I think it's very important to get clear about what you want. I want to be happy. I want to be healthy. I want to be a monster in the gym. I want to be a fucking millionaire. These are the things I want, And so as you lean into that, what you want, the universe will provide the answers. Universe, God, spirit, source, whatever you want to call it. I don't care, because we can talk about I love this topic too, the reticulating activating system in the brain. Essentially whatever you're looking for, whatever you're looking for in life, your eyes will find and your ears will hear. You'll be in a crowd, and if you're focused on making more money, you will hear somebody talking about making money, and you'll automatically gravitate to them. Or if you're someone that's very depressed, and wherever you are, you're going to find something to be depressed about. So it really comes with that intention. What do I want out of life, right? Do I want it to be easy? Do I want it to be hard? Do I want to be challenged? Do I want to have fun? Do I want this to be fun? Because once you do that, you will find the path. I looked for challenges when I was young, and I went down that road, you will run into it.
Yeah. And do you find that when you do that enough, you start to not really ever interpret things negative? Not ever. Nothing's never, but it elevates your whole persona just in on this plane of existence, period. Because now you're just always, because you've reinforced the fact that when you look for things, you find them. Yeah. You're going to be always looking for those positive things. I mean, things will happen to you, but still. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think when you listen to some of these, when I started focusing on making money, when I started focusing on that, I joined a couple of these masterminds, which I forgot to mention. That's another way to shift your paradigm. You want to be something else, go be around people that are doing that.
Oh yeah.
Who
are better than you.
Yeah. Yes. You want to be the smallest fish in the pond, and you will learn very fast. That'll shift you. You're like, man, these guys are buying islands. Some of these guys, they're trying to buy and sell islands. And I'm like, that's insane. I'm coming from a blue collar background, military, but it shifts your paradigm of what's possible. I didn't know you could finance an island. You know what I mean? So that it's a paradigm shift, right? But I'm kind of getting off track. Shoot, where was I going with that?
No, it's all good. We can play with that, because the other thing that comes to mind there is, how do you know what the right thing to chase is when you're in that mindset? So somebody listening is like, all right, I'm going to take control of my health. I've got to be there for my kids, for my family. I want to live a long life, blah, blah, blah. It could be the deepest purpose ever. And they've been fed so much misinformation for years, and haven't, if they just went out and took action, they'd stumble into another program that's not going to work. They'd stumble with another huckster. You know what I mean? So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that is a good question. And you know what? I think it is, it goes back to that. I will find what I'm seeking. You may run into a wall a couple times, but you're going to find it, When you listen to these highly successful people, let's say Oprah or Walt Disney or Steve Jobs or Henry Ford, or like they ran into wall after wall after wall, but they were so intent, so focused on where they wanted to go, what they wanted to do, that it worked out, right?
Yeah.
Like Oprah Winfrey was like fired. They said she could never be on TV. Look at her now, like, but she needed to be fired to learn to become Oprah Winfrey she is today, right?
That's it. Yeah. You're hitting it on the head, because when I think of clients who, I work mostly with people who are over 30. So they've had, and a lot of women who've dieted many times, they've done many things. And I'm really thrilled when they find me, because I know I'm going to help them and do it the right way. And they don't quite know that yet, right? This is just another attempt. Like you said, it's another attempt along the way of your count of failures, hoping that this won't be the failure. But because you've done it so many times, you have all this experience and education of what didn't work in the past, which comes back to like the past is important from that perspective, but it's framing. Yeah. So that's a great point that, and here's the other thing from personal experience. When I finally figured stuff out back in around 2020, like for my health journey, it was because I had time during the pandemic to pour everything into learning and joining groups and listening to podcasts and reading. And it was because of the just sheer exposure that I finally could find things that made sense. And that's, again, reps and quantity and just getting out there and doing it. Do you agree, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And you know what I think is interesting? The more you think, and this kind of goes back to Einstein's theory or question he asked about the universe. It also goes back to Nikola Tesla. He says the same thing. That if you think the universe is friendly, then you must have faith in it being friendly, right? And you will find it. And when you have that faith, it all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, I'm here for a reason. Like I brought myself here, but because I wanted something, and this is part of my journey. And it's almost like when you go to sleep, when you have a meal, you don't go, oh man, I hope I digest this food. Most of us don't, right? Like you just trust in your body, which is a really cool thing. It's really cool. We trust that our heart is going to beat, that our lungs are going to absorb oxygen, that we're going to metabolize the nutrients, right? There's this trust. But imagine, if the placebo effect is as powerful as you think, what if all of a sudden you started to distrust your body? Right. Like, I don't know what would happen. I don't know what would happen. But I think when you start to trust the process of your life, and I'm not saying you need to believe in God. I'm saying you're actually more powerful than you think. That's all I'm saying. When you believe in it, I think it unfolds the way you ask, right? But a lot of us, we get in this weird hamster wheel where we like, I want to end up over there, but I don't know how it's going to happen. And because you don't know how it's going to happen, you don't believe in it. So it happens a lot slower.
And you don't take that step,
Right. And that's even proof to you for something that it's not working. But I think it does. You do. And it's the same. You go to the gym, right? You have faith. Like, okay, these guys said, if I do, this much cardio, this much weightlifting, if I eat this way, if I get this much sleep, they trust you because you're an authority. And that's where their trust comes from. So sometimes it has to start there. But imagine, like, if you were a kid, if you just had faith, well, they're all doing it. I can do it.
And then, And what I want to separate for people in what you just said is, like the gym example, there are people who they go and there's two sides of this. They take a philosophy or program or idea, they go apply it, but then they're not consistent. Then they don't get results and blame whatever it was, even if it might have worked. Then there's people who take something that's not effective, apply it consistently, and it doesn't work. And I think there's where a lot of the value is, right? Because they put in the reps, they took the steps, and then it didn't work. So now you've got that feedback. Okay, cross that off the list and move to the next thing. Whereas the people over here, you can't suss out where the problem is. You can once you realize they're not being consistent.
Yeah.
Again, we're getting philosophical because I'm thinking of all these things, as well as your thought about trusting in the world. And like you, I'm very rational, but I have seen it time and again where just believe that people are good by nature, right? Because I think 99.9% people are good by nature.
I do too. Yeah.
That's what I've seen. And I know social media can like really sour that perception of humanity, but then you gotta hang out in the right places. You have to stay away from things. It's your choice. You can stay away from where the poison people are and focus elsewhere. Like my Facebook community is like that. I don't moderate it. I don't, I just trust that everybody's going to be good. And if you had a bad apple, it comes up fine. But yeah, it's very positive, man. It's good stuff.
You know what I think is cool too? I've considered this a couple of times. So if everything is okay, well, I'm not going to go that way just yet, but social media, the algorithms that they design social media with, or how they use them or whatever, are exactly the way your brain works. Like when you see something terrible, you tend to notice more terrible things, right? Whatever you're conscious of, you tend to see more of, right? So if you shift what you're conscious of, if you feel I'm depressed, I'm down, I don't feel like going to the gym. This is a, fitness podcast. So I don't feel like going to the gym. And all you do is sit around the house, you will not feel like going to the gym.
Correct.
But if you were to, I don't know, get on social media and look at all these amazing people having these amazing physiques, doing these amazing things with their body, all of a sudden it's going to shift things for you, right? And you're going to feel that. That's a feeling like, oh yeah, I could do that. I should do that. And I'll tell you right now, I've been working out my whole life. I've been in sports my whole life, and I'll still sometimes I'll put on, I like CrossFit because I think they're amazing athletes. And I'll just watch like a competition, like I'm going to the gym. I gotta go.
You get psyched up, right? Yeah, it's true. Or strongman, you're like, man, I'm a weak MF. I gotta get out there.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it works. And I mean, I think that it holds true for anything. If you're trying to build a business, build whatever, but you can use that reticulating activating system in your mind. You have to be conscious. You have to consciously, this is what I'm looking for. And let me just explain. So the reticular activating system is just you can consciously comprehend. I think it was I can't remember exactly. It was 100 images per second, right? Pixels per second or something like that is what they figured out. But your subconscious processes over 1,000. And they found if you prime your mind, or 100,000, if you prime your mind, it will pick out the things you are primed to pick out. So when they did these tests with these people, they said, okay, they had all these images showing up on a screen, and they asked them which ones the people remembered, right? And they would prime them with stuff like, okay, just when they went in, I have a feeling this is how a lot of magicians do stuff too, but honestly, how
True.
they read your
Sleight
mind.
of hand and all that, yeah.
Yeah, so they prime the people with talking about, I don't know, doctors, nurses, hospitals, stuff like that. And then in the 100,000 images that they watch, there's a few of those, and that's the only thing that people remember.
Okay.
And so that's what I'm saying. So if you can be conscious about what you're priming your mind with, and this just goes back to, what do you want? I want to be happy. I want to be wealthy. I want to feel good. I want to have love. You're going to find that. You're going to find that in the people. You're going to walk through a crowd of negative people and only find the good one happy person. That's amazing.
It is. Yeah, it is amazing. And it gets you hyper-focused, I think. Yeah. Right? Like I think of the things that I'm really passionate about now that I may not have been in the past. And it's just kept thinking about them, going after, learning, to the point where it's just your brain is carrying you that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I see it with clients too, who struggle their whole life. And all of a sudden they start lifting weights and getting PRs. And they're just like, I need to learn about form. I need to learn about movement. I need to learn about programming, this and that. And it's just cycles on itself. So
it's a positive reinforcement loop, but it goes the other way too. So you do have to be intentional. Yeah.
So then what about you, Ashton? How do you personally do this? And how do you talk to your future self? Because that's one concept we talked about is reaching out to your future self, talking to him, getting yourself to go forward. I mean, do you invite him on an imaginary podcast episode, with yourself?
I mean, that is one way. Yes. I mean, you could think of it like that. It's not recorded. I do record the ones where I do solo is me. A lot of them, it's right before that I'm journaling or free thinking. But so I got this a long time ago and I can't remember where I got it. And then somebody put this into a book, and the book is called, The Miracle Morning.
Oh,
and it's just about your morning routine. And
Hal something, right?
Hal Elrod.
Elrod, there you go.
And so it's really an intentional way of building a habit to prime your mind, to prime your body, your mind, all that stuff, right? And there's, he uses an acronym, it's called SAVERS. And I was actually doing this long before, not all of them, but a lot of them before he made the book. And I find it very effective. So the first one is silence, affirmations, visualizations, exercise, reading, and scribing. So SAVERS, SAVERS. And essentially what you're doing is you're priming your mind. So the first one is silence. You want to silence. It's the first thing you're doing up when you get up in the morning. Maybe you go to the bathroom, take a leak, drink some water. I like to drink some water because I know I get dehydrated overnight. And then I sit in silence, and I want to silence my mind because I know my mind, like in Zen, they call it your monkey mind. It'll just run off with thoughts. And then there's nothing intentional. You're reacting, and you're not, you're reactive to everything in your life instead of proactive. And I want to be proactive. I'm trying to create a lifestyle. I'm trying to create a life, a journey. I'm trying to create that. And so I don't want my monkey mind to control the beginning of my day, because that's the first, that's your prime, or, you know. So I do silence. And then the affirmation is when you after you come out of silence, the affirmations is what you're talking about, the podcast. So you have a conversation with yourself, and we don't know, a lot of times we're not conscious that we're doing this throughout the day. But we're always having a conversation. Oh, I'm hungry. I'm full. I don't like this. I do like that. That tree looks amazing. You're thinking these things in your brain, right? But the affirmations piece is a huge thing. It just goes back to telling yourself, having a conversation with yourself, what you want your day to be like, what you want your life to be like. What do I want? Who am I? Right? Because a lot of what you do in life boils down to who you think you are. And so if you want to change who you think you are, you can tell yourself these things. Man, you don't have to lie. Don't lie to yourself either, because you know when you're lying. When you're like, I'm Mr. Olympia, like everybody's going to know, you're not. But you can say things like, I'm on my way. I'm on my way, and it feels good to be making changes in my life. And I'm getting better at this every day, right? And that feels really good. And then the visualization, I like the visualization one because, you bring it. And you can do vision boards. I think vision boards are really good. I think in my journal, I have the first 2 pages are like my ideal house, where I love surfing, like all these different meals and things that represent things to me. And so when I flip up my journal, which is one of them, scribing, like writing, and I'm a very big fan of writing because you get your thoughts out on paper, and now you can analyze your thoughts and organize them. And I'll tell you, one of my biggest problems early on was I didn't organize my thoughts. So a lot of times talking in public was very unnerving because I would say, it would just come out. But anyway,
things,
yeah. But then also, like, you can read inspiring stuff. Like, you're priming your day. And that's the whole point, right? You're priming yourself for what to pick up on, what to focus on throughout the day, what you want to feel, what you want to do, have, be, whatever. And so, I think Savers is a great way to start. You don't have to do all of them. Pick a couple that work for you. I know there's a huge craze for like cold therapy, and, which, again, what works for you. Use that. And some of these things have a lot of science to back them up. But
no, it's true. Yeah. Do what works for you. I agree, because people will hear this and say, all right, I'm going to do all those things starting tomorrow. Yeah. And by the way, he mentioned something about cold plunge. I'm going to do that too. And it's like, even with the gym or fitness or whatever, there's a difference between optimal and just workable. Just get it done. Like, if you're not doing anything right now, that's going to be 80% of the way toward where you want to be, of just doing something.
Yeah.
But these are all great. And you can pick and choose. I actually read that book years ago and remember, getting up at 4 a.m. to do this stuff. I don't do it anymore because I know the value of sleep and I have to kind of work it out. But it's good stuff. So if you're listening to this, check out Miracle Morning and silence, affirmations, visualizations, exercise, reading, scribing. Do some of them, do all of them, whatever works for you.
Yeah.
All right. So I know you've accomplished a lot in life, but I sense your hunger. I sense your hunger to achieve more. You talked about your vision board. You want to spiral that out to, I'm sure, your family, your tribe. I know you talked about the tribe, right? Customers and so on with everything you do. So what is for you the biggest gap right now between your present and future self? And what are you doing about it?
I don't think I'll ever close that gap. So, but that's my inspiration, right? Maybe someday I'll meet that guy when I die. Which, and I hope I do. And that guy's like, hey man, good job. You did it. I would hate to get to the end and be like, and he's just like, what happened? So now how do I close that gap? I think that guy will always be out there developing. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that. I want to be my biggest hero. Right. I think it's good to idolize other people. Sure, I get it, but for me, it's always been about what is my potential. And I think there's a quote that I absolutely love by Nelson Mandela. I'm a big quote guy. I read a lot. but Nelson Mandela said, oh shoot, I'm going to butcher it.
You could paraphrase.
Yeah, it's basically there's no joy to be found in living a life less than the one you are capable of. Right.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something to that nature, but that's what it is. It's like you have this potential, and it's kind of like that feedback loop you do, right? We have this potential, but we think it's limited until we take action, until we learn from that, and then reframes, and it just keeps going like that. But if you're not doing that, you're not growing. Mm-hmm. Right. And one of the things I think is interesting is, people talk about it, like Tony Robbins, he's a big motivational speaker and coach. And he says, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think he's right. Think about it. You look or listen to Viktor Frankl. And if you ever read his book on Man's Search for Meaning, when people no longer had purpose, they died very quickly. He was in the concentration camps, obviously, so it's very accelerated. But the reason he would give, or the reason he found that people actually lived through those, is because they had a purpose on the other end. So, I'm going to see my wife. I'm going to have another life. It's going to be over. But when people give up on their purpose, they die very quickly. Now that's the extreme opposite. But what I'm saying is, you're alive. You feel the most alive when you are growing, when you're being challenged, when there's slight risk, not terrible risk, but when there's risk, when there's, you remember when you went to the first time you saw your high school crush, and maybe they looked at you and you were about to say something, like there was that, that's
fear. Yeah, you're alive. Exactly.
But it's also what in my mind is you're expanding your potential, right? And that's you growing. And that's what happens every time you take action, you get that feedback, you change your frame, like you're growing. And, I think we have you kind of put this in the intro, and I know we're getting late on time, but so I kind of want to throw this in there in the last minute here. I think it's every person's duty to explore their potential. The problem I see, though, is most people, I can't remember the statistics, but it's like over 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, which means if you were to look at like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, over 60% of Americans are living in the bottom half. They're fending for their family. They're trying to feed them, clothe them, and put a roof over their head. And that's it. And so they never get to explore their physical and maybe even their mental potential. Now, I'm not saying money is the answer, but it sure does help, right? And that's what I think about sometimes. Like, what prevents humans from reaching their potential and exploring their potential? Like writing that bestseller song, writing that book that changes millions of lives, running for governor so you can change your social economy or your government, right? Like those things are what move the needle in the advancement of humans. And so I think it's very important that people explore their potential. Making money is one of the keys to that. But
I agree. Well, it's funny you bring up money because I know that's your industry, and I used to be a big Ayn Rand fan. I like her books, but I'm not going to say I follow her philosophy like I did when I was young and idealistic. Well, I think it's her big opus, right? Atlas Shrugged. The character, what's his name? DeFrancesco, or the guy, he makes this, who is it? He makes a whole speech about money. Just Google it. Look up the money speech, Ayn Rand, the money speech.
I'm going to look it up.
And the whole thing is about money being in exchange for value. And we give it so much humanness that it doesn't deserve because it's just an exchange for value. Yes. And in our society, we use it for that. So I'm totally on board. Of course, being an entrepreneur and everything else, trying to take care of my family, I get that. So you're coming from the place of let's help more people also get that and be able to exchange more of their own value to then elevate their lives and those of others.
Yeah.
That's the way I interpret it. So you got an ally there here in that regard. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, I guess, I was going to talk about being an alpha and all that. I think you kind of covered that a little bit, unless there's a specific, aspect to that you wanted to add.
Yeah, for me, I think that's what it is, as the leader of your family, even as a young man or young woman growing up, like an alpha is somebody that is protecting and helping other people grow. And it's only because they're exploring their full potential. And you see this, we see this in the animal kingdom, like the alphas make sure that the pack is being led, being fed, being cared for, right? And that's what you're doing when you become a leader in your society. If you're just a father or mother, that's the alpha, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's gotten a bad rep over the years because we say alpha males are toxic and this and that, and whatever. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about being a natural leader and ensuring the growth of humanity. I mean, let's take Elon Musk for example, right? I would say that he's an alpha. He's not a complete alpha because of certain things, but the way he's moving the needle in the advancement of technology in the world, I think it's good. We're moving in that direction. And whether you think it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. Like people are going to learn from it and it's going to get better and better. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is. And that's how humanity progresses. That's how so many kids can eat in America now because we've learned how to produce food and energy. And, becoming an alpha should be everybody's goal, in my opinion.
I agree, man. I agree. And again, going back to just tying in what I'm familiar with my clients, a lot of times the goal is they want to provide more for their family and they want to set a good example for their family. And they feel they've let themselves down with their health. And as you see that shift, you see it go out to their family and you see all these wins that have nothing to do with them anymore. And it's like, my daughter saw me lifting. Now she's lifting with me. And my son is now like picking protein, like when we go to the grocery store, like little things, but it's going to have an impact on their tribe, on their family. So that definition of alpha makes complete sense to me. Yeah. All right, man. So you've got the Art of Winning podcast. Oh, there's one last question I like to ask guests. And that is, what one question did you wish I had asked? And what is your answer?
Ooh. Dang, that is a good one. We talked about so much stuff. What is the one question I wish you asked? I don't know. How can someone reach their full potential? And I think the answer to that, it's going to be keep moving forward. It's going to be clarity and focus. And I'm not a big Oprah fan. This will be the second time I talked about her on the podcast. But she said,
we all know Oprah.
Yeah, she said something, and it's absolutely true. It's like most people don't get what they want out of life because they don't explore what they want out of life, right? And there are certain things that inherent in you, in your life, whatever, that drive you in a certain direction. And if you don't explore that, like if you say, I want to become a pilot, but you never pursue that, you're leaving so much on the table. That was part of your potential, Yeah.
Don't just think about it, explore it.
Yeah. Are we going to do it? Are we going to be about it? Or are we just going to talk about it? We're here. We're in a physical realm. Let's action. Go make it.
Find somebody, get a book, go to get some training, talk to people who know about this stuff, listen to a podcast, anything. People listening right now, there's easy things you can do to move that needle forward. So
taking action can be very small, but it gets bigger and bigger because all of a sudden, that is
because your paradigm shifts, your potential gets bigger. There you go. All right, man, this is awesome. So where can listeners find more about you and your work?
I have the Art of Winning podcast. And we have guests on. Then I also do solo episodes talking about a lot of this stuff, as well as entrepreneurship. But it's focused on health, wealth, and happiness. But we also have our website, and it's more for real estate investing, but it's called Valkere Investment Group. And that's www.valkeregroup.com, valkeregroup.com. So...
All right, you got it. The Art of Winning podcast. Definitely follow it. If you're listening right now, it's super easy to do that. Just go in your app, look it up, click follow, and check it out. And then the website I'll put in the show notes, man. Ashton, this was a lot of fun. Really cool topics that we dove deep into, and I enjoyed it. So thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wits and Weights. If you found value in today's episode and know someone else who's looking to level up their wits or weights, please take a moment to share this episode with them. And make sure to hit the follow button in your podcast platform right now to catch the next episode. Until then, stay strong.